Many thanks for staying tuned. It's still the conversation here on Lagos Television. Of course, this morning we'll be taking a look at a very important sector in Nigeria. And if well tapped into, this sector is able to not only boost the growth and stability of the country, but also to increase the gross domestic GDP of Nigeria. Of course, not only now, but in the future. But what are some of the things that we need to take cognizance of in the tourism industry? We're delighted this morning to have in the studio a friend of the house, of course, if I dare say so, as a colleague, a brother, and it's good to have him here this morning, the Director General of the Nigerian Tourism Development Authority, Olayiwola Awaken. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a delight to be here anytime. Right.
Let's start this way. Of course, has it been transiting from a journalist to being, of course, the DG of the Nigerian Tourism Development Authority?
Well, it's been an interesting adventure for me.
Right.
Not just transiting from being a journalist to the DG of NTDA. It's also transiting from the creative, hemisphere of this country, because I used to call myself a journal thespian because I cover not just journalism, I also cover the theater and being an arts and culture ambassador and a playwright, a poet and all that. So it's been an environment that I am comfortable in, and I've been doing this for so many years. So it's just an opportunity to say big thanks to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, for giving me this opportunity to serve on a bigger scale, to see how I can make my impact, felt in the tourism sector in Nigeria. Because what I want to do basically is to bring freshness to the tourism sector, is to bring necessary growth to the tourism sector, is to call the attention of Nigerians to the fact that tourism is a gold mine for us, and the more we come together to develop the sector, the better for us as a nation. Right.
So what are the core mandates of NTDA?
Okay, so the core mandate of NTDA is to market Nigeria, is marketing. The core mandate of NTDA is development and promotion of our tourist destinations. The core mandate of NTDA is to ensure that the tourism sector is better for it. Is to ensure that we have the necessary development in the tourism sector. So we are the #1 marketer of Nigeria to the global society, either in the area of inbound tourism or outbound tourism. What we also do in the hospitality sector is to regulate, because we are the foremost and the apex, agency in the tourism sector for the regulation of the tourism sector. So what we do is to ensure that the value chain in the tourism sector is properly handled, is properly managed, and for the global society to see Nigeria in a better light in terms from the tourism, perspective. And to the glory of God, Mr. President is so particular and is deliberate about using tourism for diversification of the economy, because we cannot continue to depend on oil. If we see what other countries have done, even countries who do not have much, who do not have anything at all, those countries have turned around, they are nothing to something. So, but we are sitting on gold. All we need to do is just to be deliberate, is just to be intentional, and develop this thing and make it something that the world would want to also spend money to do, to come and see. We spend our money to go outside the country to see, I'll call it those artificial turnaround tourism assets of those other countries. But we have them in abundance. These are natural assets that we have in this country that we just need to be intentional about to develop.
I like the word intentional, and I use it a lot, because when you're intentional about something, you'll make efforts towards making that thing thrive. And in that manner, we do know that tourism at the moment, maybe now, is beginning to receive the attention that it really desires. We're not there yet, but at least there's a conscious effort at ensuring that we develop our tourism sector. Let's start with domestic tourism. You mentioned earlier we have it in abundance here. gone were those days that, you know, places like the Yankari Game Reserve, you know, a couple of places, the Obudu Ranch, those places were sights to behold. Olumorok, yes, is wearing a new look at the moment. The Ogun State government has been quite intentional about. There's so many places, even in Lagos here, in Ekpe. There's so many places that people should be able to visit if they were in proper shape and if there was that enlightenment of what we have here. So how much of intentionality will the NTDA be bringing on board here, especially partnering with state government at ensuring that domestic tourism really now gets the attention it deserves?
Okay, so I think the intentionality that we need here is to collaborate. You've mentioned some of these tourist destinations and heritage sites that used to be the pride of this nation. But if you go to those places now, some of them have lost their glory. It's because we failed to realize that most times tourism development is private sector driven.
Right.
The government has a huge role to play, no denying that fact. But I always say that, look, for instance, let's look at some of those tourist destinations that you've mentioned, and look at Ubudukatu Ranch. Disappointment that I have to lead the ship of NTDA and the tourism sector in Nigeria is just for 4 years. Maximum I get reappointed, that's 8 years. After 8 years, I leave the office. Right. Somebody else will come to the office. Whatever brilliant initiative that I come with, and I'm driving it. If I want to drive it solely as a government agency, fantastic. People will praise me for it for the period of time that I'll spend. But when I leave and somebody else comes in, or there's a change in, in political alignment and all that, we just be assured that the frenzy that thing received while in office might not be there.
So continuity is a great
key.
issue.
So, but if you have the private sector involved in the initial planning, and you give them probably a reasonable percentage of involvement, like maybe 60 or 70%, and you provide the enabling environment, you provide the necessary support, you provide everything that is needed to make it thrive. When you spend the time that you have to stay in the office and you leave, the private sector will not leave their business. They will not leave the work, and they will ensure that because they have a greater or a better input or contribution, they will ensure that it is being driven well, it's been maintained and all that. You mentioned Olumorok. Yes, I've been to it was one of the places I visited after my appointment, and the turnaround you have there is because there's a good partnership. There's private sector involvement. Another instance I always make reference to is Ikogosi. Ikogosi also has a good partnership with the private sector, the PPP. And when I went to Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, the closest to what I saw in Riyadh was Ikogosi. That's the closest. And what we're doing at NTDA is to ensure that we get this, this level of development replicated across board, because Nigeria is blessed. One of the areas we're focusing on as an agency of the federal government is to use storytelling for tourism development. I'm a storyteller, and I know that Nigeria is a macrocosm of stories. We are born into stories. We live in a communal society. Everything about us is storytelling. And if we are to pick on stories from our indigenous, our indigenous strengths, our heritage, our culture, and to tell these stories 365 days in a year, we will not repeat a story. And it is a story that we use to drive our tourism sector and to drive this nation. these are the stories that the foreign, society, they use to invite us down. When they do stories and you see the likes of Hollywood being presented to us, we want to see, you see some of those tourism assets being put into their stories and all that. So what if we do the same thing here? Okay. Number one, the first thing is we are intentional. We look at those tourist destinations and heritage sites, we develop them, and also want to discover more tourist destinations. Okay. Because I've been working with some of these with traditional rulers, because tourism is also community-based. Sure. If you want to develop a tourist destination or heritage site in a particular community, and you don't want to carry the people along the way you should, you just know that you're just joking. Some of these festivals and tourist destinations that are, properly developed and are doing very well, is because there's strong involvement of the community people. And if you cannot talk about the community without talking about the traditional rulers, so there's going to be a lot of partnership with traditional rulers. Okay. We are going to discover some new, tourist destinations. I've been having conversations with some monarchs, and part of the, project we want to do is to see how we can work with the traditional rulers across the country, to see how we can bring up these tourist destinations, develop them. We may not be able to develop everything because they are so numerous, Look at Osun State, for instance. Look at Ile-Ife, for instance. You know that in Ile-Ife, they celebrate festivals every day of the year, excluding one day, 365 days, excluding one day. What about us turning those festivals into stories? When we turn them into stories, we use technology to turn them into stories, and these stories are being aired, and we see, the foreign society, they see these stories, they will be attracted, they will be, the stories will be captivating. They want to come and see when they hear that these stories are true life stories, domiciled in Ekiti State, domiciled in Sokoto, domiciled. There are several other stories like that that we can tell with our clothes, with our food, with our dances, with our everything. Africa, Nigeria is a land of stories, and that's what we'll be doing. And within the first few weeks of my, assumption of office, we came up with a project called Naija Flavor. Okay. And Naija Flavor is what we'll be using to drive our campaign and our strategy, because Nigeria is a vibe. You understand? Nigeria is a vibe that the world wants to be a part of. I was in Ghana for the Creative Connect Africa, and I met with key stakeholders across Africa in the tourism and entertainment sector. And you could see the enthusiasm in the minds of these people that they want to come into Nigeria to see what we've got. So Nigeria is a vibe. And what is this vibe? The vibe is in our flavor. And what's this flavor? The flavor is in our food. The flavor is in our dance. The flavor is in our music.
Our
the flavor
custom
is in our
tradition.
Custom and tradition. All we need to do is just to look inward, be proactive, package these things in a way that we will present it to the international society, and they will pay for the inbound for it. Right.
I'm still going to stay with what you've mentioned, talking about our culture. And then we do know that we have many festivals. You mentioned a few. Just weeks ago, Lagos also hosted the Eyo Festival. I know you were also at that ceremony. I've also, there are a couple of festivals that we've also lost track of. I remember so well the Agungun Festival. That festival is one that, was one festival a lot of people used to look forward to. The Doba Festival is also one, but again we have a lot of issues why some of these festivals are not holding. Is the NTDA also looking at creating a yearly calendar so that people can also plan? When people want to travel out of the country, they plan towards summer, and they know that, okay, this particular place at this particular time of the year, there's a reason why I want to go. The Notting Hill Carnival, people plan towards that. Are we looking at developing a calendar in Nigeria? 30 December is already one that a lot of people know that in December that must happen. So are we looking into incorporating that also into the Nigerian tourism industry, where every year in a particular month or a particular quarter we can begin to plan towards also creating awareness for domestic tourism, so at least people do not also jettison out of the country at every particular point in time, wanting to take money out to develop other the tourism sector of other countries?
Okay, so This question is a very, very important one that I am so keen about. You see, developing inbound tourism, which most people call domestic tourism, it's very key. And if you talk about creating calendar of events, of festivals and all that, that's actually the mandate of NTDA.
Okay.
And looking at your festival, which you mentioned, I was part of that that ceremony, and I know how that has impacted our economy in the States and in the country in a very huge way.
Right.
Because the value chain of tourism is massive. You know, if you come into the country, you are going to get an apartment, that's hospitality, you're going to spend your money. If you come into the country, you are going to move around, which tourism itself is movement. You're going to spend your money, you are going to buy things, there's merchandising, there's all that. Whatever you're spending, you're injecting it into the economy. And that is what helps to grow the GDP of the country.
Right.
If we consider the value chain of tourism in its real sense, I think tourism should be contributing over 25% to the GDP of this country if we look at it from the real sense of it. Because even the transportation, the flights, the train, people move around, and that is the strength of tourism. So what we're doing at NTDA is to see how we can put all this into a calendar, a calendar of events. Away from putting it into a calendar of events, we're also using technology because, like I said, that collaboration is the key thing. We'll be collaborating with state governments. We'll be collaborating with the private sector. We'll be collaborating with sister agencies. As I speak with you now, there's something we're working with NTDC. That's the Nigerian Information Technology Development agency. We'll be working with them to create some virtual reality, do some some recordings of well-developed tourist destinations, and we're also collaborating with the foreign ministry. When we have had conversation with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and we're looking at how we can train their staff across all the mission, across the world. Because when we train their staff and we get this, virtual reality to those places. So, for instance, if you are in London and you go to our embassy there and you want to come to Nigeria, the first treat that will give you will be there. So when you're there and they give you the virtual reality or they give you some technology for you to see what we've got in Nigeria,
then you can plan
that thing will attract you. Then you can plan. Then when you're coming into the country, we're also having a conversation with NCAA, the Civil Aviation Authority. When you get to the airport here, we'll give you a good treat, good treats. Then you're also, arrested. Then from there, they redirect you to NTDA. Then from NTDA, we now give you that experience that you want to have. So we want to move things around. We want to have a comprehensive calendar of events and festivals. Look at Oshoba Festival, even the Google Fishing Festival that you're talking about. These are festivals that we should celebrate. Kebbi State government, for instance, for outbound tourism, they are spending over 10 million or 10 billion naira to send people on pilgrimage to Saudi Arabia. That's outbound tourism. You are donating, you are injecting that into the economy of another country. While we can do same. When I was in Saudi Arabia and in my hotel room, I bumped into the Mecca TV, live TV, and from morning till night, you see people trooping in and trooping out, and the number never reduced. And this is not the same set of people. They are new people. Do you know how much that is contributing to the economy of that country? And we have more than enough of these tourist destinations and assets in Nigeria. All we need to do is just to develop and create tourism activities around these tourist destinations. So there's going to be a lot of partnership. There's something we're also doing in terms of storytelling. We're working with some private sector to see how we can create a streaming platform for tourism stories in Nigeria and across board. So when we do this, We'll create stories.
Okay.
And these stories are the ones that will just say, okay, for instance, we want to talk about the story of Mikogosi, for instance. For every tourist destination, when you listen to the tour guides,
right,
they will give you a very interesting story.
Yeah.
And these interesting stories, how can we turn it around for good?
Right.
That's number one. We're doing that with technology. It's going to be one of the major activities that we're going to launch out during my first maybe 1 year in office, and it's going to be huge. Even other African countries are looking forward to partnering with NTDA, to partner with Nigeria to get the template. So that we've taken it to a level. In the next few weeks or few months, we are going to launch out, and the public will know about that project. Away from that, let's look at also a major aspect of tourism, the tour guides. There's no tourist destination that you go to that the tour guide will not take you around.
Right.
But it's not well packaged.
Okay.
So we're working with some institutions outside the country to see how we can repackage and rebrand our tour guides in Nigeria in a way that it will be attractive, so that they will be equipped, and they will also give them the right acknowledgements by the government, and will make them to see that this is a job. This is not just a hobby. It's the way you present yourself to the international tourists who come into this country, that they'll see. When they see you well dressed up, kit up, maybe you're putting on a well-packaged adire, that's what you're putting on. And you're already selling your culture, and you have a good command of English. When you explain to them, we'll start giving awards to these people. Even the private sector, those who have been doing it in their own, individual rights to showcase some of these tourist destinations, we're going to recognize them. So we're working on, I'm working on a holistic strategy plan, which will be made public very soon to see the areas that we're covering. And all these festivals too, we are going to work on a project to ensure that when you do a festival, there's an excellence award coming to the best festival at the end of the year. So when that happens, imagine Osun Osogbo Festival or Argungu Fishing Festival winning the best festival of the year this year. Be assured that the following year there will be more people to go into that particular country to go and see what's happening there. So there's a whole lot that we're trying to rework, repackage to bring freshness to the tourism sector.
In all of this, have we also put into consideration the mindset of Nigerians themselves? Because again, sometimes when we do certain things, we always want to package these things for those coming outside the shores of the country to feel Nigeria. But I mean, if I was to take a tour to maybe Ekpe or to Ikogosi, as someone who stays in Nigeria, there are certain things I also would be looking forward to. So is that also part of the plan to ensure that whatever it is we're planning, we're also putting the mindset of those at home into consideration, so they also can feel those sides and not being treated like like those from the diaspora? Because again, sometimes you want to do certain things and you feel we're not into consideration. It is not for us. So are we getting into, are there plans to also get into the minds of those who stay here? We have this culture of, we always feel that until we go abroad, we're not taking a holiday. But can we also begin to get into the mindsets of Nigerians that, a weekend drive outside the shores of your comfort zone. Can you also take a drive to, certain places and also feel like you're a tourist?
Okay. So I think that's the first mindset that we need to change. And the change in that mindset is in the sense that we are Nigerians. We should take ownership of these things. We should be deliberate about appreciating what we've got. You don't have to wait for NTDA, for instance, or for the government to let you know that, look, these things are ours. We need to appreciate it. I remember shortly before I got appointed, I did a story on Brahim Chatter's
yes, in
film village
State, right?
in Oyo town. And I knew what I saw. There were a good number of Nigerians who went on a tour of that tourist destination, which it has become, the film village. I know we have quite a number of these tourist destinations in Nigeria. All we need to do is just to be deliberate about it. My predecessors who have done so well, they focused more on domestic tourism. That's inbound tourism. And we once we appreciate what we have, it's very easy for us to market it to the international community.
Right.
But I want us to know that the money that we need to drive the tourism sector will have to come from those people who are outside Nigeria. Because the same way we are spending millions of naira, millions of dollars to Saudi Arabia, to those countries to develop their country, we also have to do the same thing deliberate to bring them into the country. Notwithstanding, we need to encourage our own people here too in Nigeria to say, look, you have to go around. You have to go to Ikogosi. You have to go to Olumorok. Yeah, I know how Olumorok has transformed. And I could see the level of influx of Nigerians and even, you know, those in diaspora to Olumorok this December. The same thing at Ikogosi. As at October, I was told, because I have a relationship with the management of Ikogosi, I was told that the Ikogosi was fully booked. From October, it was fully booked. So this is what we're talking about. Nigeria, a reasonable percentage of Nigerians know that, yes, you can take a tour to some of these tourist destinations. But the first thing we need to do is to ensure that these destinations are day sets for people to come around. I was having a conversation with some of my directors in the office, and they made me realize that some of the, you know, the beauty of these tourist destinations as presented on social media is not, most times they are not what they look like. Because some of the international tourists in the past have been deceived by those pictures. They see those pictures online and they want to come around and see. And by the time they get to those sites, it's not the same thing. Look at Obudukatu Ranch. You can't compare the Obudukatu Ranch of years back to Obudukatu Ranch of now. But the photograph of Obudukatu Ranch then is still there on the internet. And that's what they will see. You know, so until we do that deliberate effort, and also what we're focusing on this year is to see how we can attend most of these international tourist markets, you know, and expo outside the country, you know, ITB Berlin and all that, you know, WTM and all that. So when we go, we know that we are packaging some products, you know, to be taken out. If it is just 4 or 5 tourist destinations that are ready to be sold that we have, if it's just 10 or thereabout festivals that are ready, that we know their calendar, we go out of this country, and these are what we will market. We will tell them, come and see. By the time they come, if we have like 100 people come around to see these destinations, and they are also being given a good treat by the tour guides, and they see that there's a change, the multiplier effect of that is if 100 would come, and by the time they go back, the 100, one will tell 5. One will tell 5, and look at what will happen in the following years or the next time they'll be coming to the country on the tourism. So these are all the things that we're
So from the point you've raised now, as a regulator, is NTDA empowered to sanction some hospitality, those in the hospitality business for misinformation? Because again, if what you have on your website is not what you have on ground, that can be some kind of deceit. So as a regulator, are you also able to go around some of these facilities to ascertain that what you claim that you have is what you have on ground?
Yeah, we're working on that. And that still has to do with collaboration. There's something that the ministry is working on. The minister herself, Barrister Anatu Musawa, she's doing her best as well. So what we're doing at NTDA is to see how we can collaborate with the state governments, collaborate with some of those private sectors, and see that, look, this is about the image of Nigeria, you understand? And if you give one bad experience, that one bad experience will spread to so many people. So we need to ensure that what we're putting out there is the right thing, so that when they come, they see what you've put out there. So as a regulatory body, what we're doing also is to also sanction those people, give sanctions to those people who are being deceptive, so to speak, in the way you know, they present whatever they do, their products to the international community. It's a whole lot of collaboration. It's a whole lot of dialogue.
It is.
Because we are going to be having stakeholders meetings, stakeholders summits. We are going to be having tourism, you know, investment summit. We are going to, there's a whole lot that we want to do, you know, to ensure that, you know, this is just a few months of me being in office. So practically, I'm just 3 months old in office. But we have hit the ground running. We have started to show visibility. We have made the people see that, look, tourism development cannot be done in isolation. It has to be, all hands must be on deck to ensure that we do the right thing. Because when we do the right thing, that will get the right results. Nigeria, people, you know, want to hide under the shadow of insecurity there,
I was going to ask.
insecurity there. But I say this, you know, that look, there's no country in this world without its own share of insecurity. What we need to do as a people is to allow the positives to overshadow the negatives. Because the more we sell the negative, the more we are demarketing our country. And demarketing our country will not help us. In fact, some people in diaspora, outside the country, they feel that you can't walk freely
on the road.
You can't walk freely on the streets. You know, and which is not. I can be in Abuja and drive around 12, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. if I have things, you know, to do, and nothing will happen. Yes, there are pockets of places that have those things, but President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the government is addressing it. Let's allow the government to address it. You know, security chiefs, we know how concerned the president is. They are doing their best. But as they are doing that, we shouldn't also contribute to demarketing our country. When you demarket it, you are giving an impression that Nigeria is not safe. And look at you. Look at you. Look at me, look at everyone on the streets. We're doing well. It's just to say that, look, let's concentrate more on the positives. Let's sell Nigeria. Let's sell the natural resources that we've got in this country. Let's use it to overshadow, you know, the negative narratives that, you know, is being spread out there.
Though you're 3 months in office or thereabout, but I'm sure that you've had to meet with your predecessors in office and taken a look at where, you know, they've taken the agency to, and you also have your own personal projection into what you'd like to add into the NTDA. Permit me to ask, what are some of the mistakes that you think that, you know, you don't want to find the agency making in a bid to ensure that, you know, the NTDA is well positioned for global tourism, not only in Nigeria, but across the world?
Okay, so one of the things I saw on assumption of office was the fact that I think the tourism sector, the stakeholders in the tourism sector, they've not been speaking in one voice. There's not been this unity amongst this, you know, people working in staccato, beat by beat and all that, which we are trying to address. I'm a man of peace. And what I've done is, for everybody that is interested in the growth of tourism in this country, that is interested in Nigeria specifically, we need to work together. You understand? So one thing that I'm bringing into the sector is unity, is freshness. For instance, last year, I know that some individual private sectors, they've done their bids to ensure that they take Nigeria to some of these international, you know, tourism markets. You know, they have their individual strengths. And some of them have come to me in my office and I said, look, okay, I want to do this. I want to partner with NTDA. I want to do that. I called the FTAN. FTAN is the Federation of Tourism Associations of Nigeria. And I said, look, we have to work together. FTAN regulates all the associations in the private sector. I said, look, if we don't work together, then there can't be progress in the tourism sector. You understand? So we are working in synergy. And as at November last year, we inaugurated a committee, you know, with the private sector involvement, the ministry are being championed by NTDA to see how we can start planning to have good participation at the international tourism market in 2026.
Right.
So, and according to what I heard, that this is more like the first time that there's going to be this, you know, unity. There's going to be this synergy between the private sector and the public sector. You understand, in driving this thing, and that is what we're doing. So I think by the time we address that, the other challenges that we have are just minimal. Maybe, okay, we're looking at the challenge of, you know, security for tourists. We are working with some private sector initiatives to see how we can address that. We are looking at the issue of maybe road infrastructure. We are, you know, we are working with some, you know, private sector and investors to work on that. And also another thing we're focusing on as an agency is to say Nigeria does not have a tourism city. Nigeria does not have, you know, I know what I saw when I went to Riyadh. There's a place that we're all hosted in Riyadh during the UN tourism program. It's called Boulevard World. And when you get to Boulevard World, you're entering into a new city entirely. You know, and that's where you spend all your money. There's nothing you're looking for that you can't get there. So we are trying to replicate some of these things in Nigeria. We want to have a tourism city. They're called a Renewed Hope Tourism City in Abuja. Then across all the 6 geopolitical zones, because NTDA has, there will also be, you know, some tourism arena, you know, replicated across board, so that when you come and you have a venue, you know, to host you, that will give you a good experience about the country. So it's all still boils down to intentionality. As individuals, as government, as private sector, we need to be intentional about how we use tourism to drive the economy for positivity and prosperity. Right.
As we close this conversation, I'm going to take us back to where we started from, and we did say that if well harnessed, if the potential are well looked into, the tourism industry is the next gold mine for Nigeria. How positive are you about this, and is the NTDA properly positioned to champion that cause?
Yes, the NTDA is well positioned and positively positioned to champion that cause. And already we have seen the interest of investors in other parts of the country, investors from Canada, investors from the US, investors from the UK that want to come into this country and collaborate with NTDA to see how we can bring these initiatives to reality. We talked about a streaming platform that we're working on already. We have investors on board. We talked about the tourism city that will, you know, that I want to have. We already have investors on board. We talk about some of these, you know, awards and initiatives that we're bringing on board. We talk about the rebranding of the, you know, tour guides in Nigeria. So because all this, by the time we do all this, number one, we're going to have the right data, because I saw that that's another challenge. There's no accurate data, so you can't plan if there's no data. And this data cannot be gotten in isolation. We need to work with the state government, because most of these tourist destinations are domiciled in the states. So you have to work with the state government. You have to get the accurate data. You have to, because this is what you use to attract. We have the number in Nigeria, over 250 million, you know, Nigerians or thereabouts. You know, by the time we, you know, curate the right initiatives and the right programs for them. So Nigeria, NTDA is well positioned to drive that. And you know that we only have 2 agencies of government, you know, in the tourism sector. That's the NTDA and NIHOTO. And NIHOTO is for, you know, capacity building and you know, training of staff in the tourism sector. So we are working together. You know, we're working together with NIHOTO as the 2 brothers or sisters in the tourism sector, agencies in the tourism sector. You know that President Bola Tinubu created a tourism ministry initially, and due to one reason or the other had to be merged again with the arts, culture and creative economy to make it arts, culture, tourism and creative economy, which is also good. But we are well positioned and we are ready to work together in unity to drive the positivity that we need, to use tourism to enhance its diversification, to use public-private partnership to bring about the right development that is needed in the tourism sector for Nigeria to be better for it.
All right. Are they also part of your projection to also work with airlines to ensure that some of the virtuals that you hope to present can also form part of in-flight entertainment, so those flying into Nigeria can also have a preview into what they can enjoy once they land here?
Yeah, so that's also part of the things that we have in plan.
Okay.
We're working with, we're collaborating with FAN as well. Just like I said, we're collaborating with NCAA. We're collaborating with the foreign airlines. The airlines. We're collaborating with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So it's a whole, it's a gamut of value chain in the tourism sector, and we have to be deliberate about it. And so we're doing so. There's work in progress regarding that, to see that when we develop with NITSTAR, by the time we develop all this with the private sector as well, we are going to get them to strategic points, to strategic places that will, enhance the objective that we want to get out of it.
All right, this will be a fine place to leave this conversation this morning. Thank you so much, Olayiwola Awaken, for being here. No, I'm going to call your full name. Olayiwola Awaken, Director General, Nigerian Tourism Development Authority. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us, and we wish you the very best.
Thank you so much for having me
ahead. All right, we've been speaking with, of course, our guest this morning, and he's taking us through the plans and projections for the tourism industry in 2026 and beyond. My takeaway from this conversation is we need to project Nigeria in a positive light. If we do not do that, of course, those in the outside world will not do that for us. So let's make it a responsibility to ensure that we project Nigeria in the true light at all times. We take a quick break. When the conversation returns, Ade Binkwe will be here with her Lagos conversation.